There is a version of success that looks clean from the outside. A family seemingly built for television, running a Las Vegas pawn shop that became one of the most watched shows in History Channel history, dealing in rare artifacts and delivering history lessons to audiences across more than 150 countries. That version is real, but it has never been the whole story of Corey Harrison, the man millions know as Big Hoss from Pawn Stars, because running alongside everything the cameras captured was a life defined by surgery tables and motorcycle crashes, by courtrooms and cemetery visits, by grief that arrived in waves and never once waited for a convenient moment between seasons. What makes Corey's life worth examining isn't the show itself, as successful as it became. It's the fact that behind every confident negotiation played out under studio lighting, behind every deal struck with a stranger who walked in off the Vegas Strip, behind every moment of laughter shared between a grandfather, a father, and a son, there was a man carrying weight the audience was never supposed to see. This is the full account, the one that starts long before the cameras arrived and extends into territory no highlight reel would ever cover. If you think you already know Corey Harrison from watching Pawn Stars on the History Channel, stay with this a little longer, because the real story is stranger, sadder, and ultimately more worth knowing than anything that ever aired on cable television. Born on April 27, 1983, in Las Vegas, Nevada, Corey Harrison came into a city whose entire identity runs on risk and reinvention, and in retrospect, it's difficult to imagine a more fitting birthplace for the life he would go on to live. His parents were Rick Harrison and Kim Harrison, and his grandfather was the late Richard Benjamin Harrison, known to virtually every fan of the gold and silver pawn shop simply as the Old Man, a nickname that carried genuine warmth and decades of earned respect in equal measure. Growing up alongside 5 siblings, including Adam Harrison and Jake Harrison, Corey entered a household where the family business wasn't background detail, but the central organizing force around which everything else arranged itself. The gold and silver pawn shop, which would eventually earn its place in American pop culture, started as a 300-square-foot secondhand store on Las Vegas Boulevard South in 1981, where Richard and Rick Harrison sold coins, sports memorabilia, and whatever else came through the door looking for a new owner. Jewelry emerged as the dominant category over time, and as their expertise and their reputation for fair dealing expanded, so did the business and its standing in the city. By the time Corey was old enough to contribute, the shop had already become a meaningful Las Vegas institution, and Rick made a deliberate decision about how his son would enter the family trade, from the bottom, with no shortcuts offered and none accepted. Corey was 9 years old when he started working at the shop, and that detail matters more than it might first appear. While children his age were navigating elementary school and spending weekends on video games, Corey was learning to read strangers, negotiate in real time, and build the kind of instincts about value that most professionals spend entire careers trying to develop. Watching his grandfather work, the patience deployed with precision, the silence used at exactly the right moment, the authority that comes only from decades of experience, left impressions that no classroom could replicate. Those early years at the gold and silver pawn shop before the History Channel arrived were, in every meaningful sense, the foundation on which the televised version of Corey Harrison was eventually built, and the education he received there proved more durable than anything formal schooling could have offered him. Producers Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines from Left Field Pictures were operating from a straightforward theory when they came looking for a location. That pawn shops contained authentic human drama that scripted television could never manufacture regardless of budget. When they found the gold and silver pawn shop near the Las Vegas Strip, they found the right place and the right people simultaneously. Pawn Stars debuted in July 2009 and became a cultural phenomenon faster than almost anyone involved had anticipated, with viewers responding to the combination of genuine historical knowledge delivered in conversational terms, the unpredictable stream of customers, and their even more unpredictable items, and the organic chemistry of watching 3 generations of the Harrison family navigate a shared business with all the warmth and friction that family dynamics inevitably produce. Customers arrived carrying everything from rare Civil War documents and vintage sports equipment to celebrity memorabilia and items so unusual the Harrisons had no reference point to draw on. and at its height the shop held more than 10,000 items in inventory. The Harrison family had gone from being respected locally to being recognized in countries they'd never visited, with audiences watching in 38 different languages, a scale of reach none of them had imagined when they first agreed to let cameras into the shop. Corey's role within Pawn Stars evolved visibly and substantially across the seasons. What made him compelling from the beginning wasn't polish or performed expertise. It was the willingness to be wrong in front of millions of people, which is genuinely rare in any public-facing environment. The story he tells about purchasing 5 fake Rolex watches at 19 years old, convinced he knew more than he did, losing real money on worthless items, keeping his job only because the employer who might have fired him also happened to be his father. That story reveals character far more accurately than any success could. And that's when viewers started to take him seriously, not because he was always right, but because he chose to tell that story openly rather than bury it. Over time, the competence he was actively building became visible and verifiable to anyone paying attention, and he developed a real ability to identify forgeries, assess value under pressure, manage over 30 employees, and handle the full range of commercial relationships that a successful pawn shop demands. By any measure, he has reportedly purchased more items into the gold and silver pawn shop than any other individual employee across the show's entire history. A figure that reflects not just longevity, but consistent, genuine engagement with the business that goes well beyond a family obligation fulfilled. Among the most consequential contributions Corey made to the show's identity was one viewers might not immediately recognize as a business decision. When he was 21 years old, he hired his friend Austin Russell, known universally as Chumlee, to come work at the gold and silver pawn shop, and that single decision proved transformative for the show's personality and its appeal. Chumlee became one of the most beloved figures in Pawn Stars history, bringing a quality of humor and unpredictability that gave the show a warmth it might not have found through any other means. Spotting something worth nurturing in a person and then acting on that instinct is its own form of intelligence, and Corey demonstrated it clearly and early. The three of them, Corey, Rick, and Chumlee, later appeared as themselves on the Nickelodeon series iCarly in an episode called I Lost My Head in Vegas. And in July 2014, they launched a History Channel game show called Pawning It, where they competed against contestants trying to win cash and merchandise directly from the shop. Both ventures paid off, and the man who had entered the show as the youngest family member had grown into a fully realized and independently compelling television personality. The relationship between Corey and his father Rick has never been uncomplicated, and the professional tensions running beneath the surface became one of the more genuinely interesting threads woven through the show's later seasons. Season 6 brought those tensions to a head when Corey issued a direct ultimatum: 10% of the business, or he was walking away from the gold and silver pawn shop entirely. It was a serious gamble, the kind that could have fractured something beyond repair. Rick Harrison and the old man, who together held majority ownership of the company, ultimately settled on 5% with an understanding that more could follow, and Corey accepted those terms. His stake in the company is widely believed to have grown since that negotiation, though the exact figures were never made public. But here's the thing. What the conflict revealed beneath the financial specifics was something more telling than any number: a son who needed his contribution formally recognized, and a father who believed that recognition had to be earned on a timeline only he could define. Neither position was unreasonable, and that ambiguity gave their dynamic a texture and tension that no scripted drama could have manufactured. While all of that was unfolding publicly, Corey was fighting a battle considerably more personal. At his heaviest, his weight reached 402 pounds, and his doctor had placed him on preventative diabetes medication. That word preventative carrying more weight in that conversation than most single words can bear. The drive home from that appointment is what broke things open for him. Frightened and processing what he'd just been told, Corey passed a clinic offering lap band surgery, pulled in without an appointment or preparation of any kind, pulled out 4 credit cards, and asked what the surgery required. The transformation that followed was one of the most dramatic physical changes the show has ever witnessed. 50 pounds gone in the first 6 weeks after the procedure, and another 100 disappeared by the end of the first year, with 200 pounds total eventually shed. What changed wasn't just his appearance. His entire relationship with his own body shifted completely as he began eating with genuine intention, exercising daily, and boxing 12 rounds a day, 5 days a week. Snowboarding, a sport he loved as a teenager and abandoned in his 20s because his body could no longer fit the equipment, came back into his life, and being able to touch his own toes again was the moment he understood that everything had actually, permanently changed. That same year, a motorcycle accident on the way to collect supplies for his own birthday party left him jumping off a moving bike at 40 miles per hour to avoid a worse outcome. He survived, had surgery on his hand, left with 8 screws and 2 metal plates as permanent reminders, and went back to the birthday party before going to the hospital. The losses that accumulated in later years were of a different kind entirely, and none of them could be addressed with surgery or willpower. On June 25, 2018, Richard Benjamin Harrison, the old man, the patriarch, the man whose vision had made every subsequent version of the family story possible, passed away at 77 years old from complications related to Parkinson's disease. The illness had not been publicly known, which made the announcement feel sudden and raw to millions of fans who believed they knew this family well. Rick Harrison shared the news with his followers on Instagram, describing his father as a teacher, a friend, and so much more, and writing that he had lost someone he loved on the other side of a life lived very full. Corey's tribute was equally personal, reflecting the loss not just of a grandfather, but of the man who had built the world he grew up in, and he asked for privacy in the days that followed. The History Channel released a statement calling Richard Harrison a cherished member of their extended family, whose wisdom and honesty would be deeply missed. None of that made the timing easier, and the difficult period was not short, because just months after burying his grandfather, Corey's second marriage to Karina Harrison, whom he had married on May 26, 2017, ended in September of 2018. The split came down to busy schedules and the pressures of their respective lives rather than to open conflict, which made it no less painful given everything else happening simultaneously. And that's when things became even more complicated, because in October 2018, Corey and Karina welcomed a son, Richard Benjamin Harrison, named directly after the man they had just lost. His first marriage, to his high school sweetheart Charlene in 2009, had ended in divorce in 2015, with few details ever made public beyond the fact that she had worked alongside him at the gold and silver pawn shop during their time together. September of 2023 brought a legal situation Corey clearly would have preferred to avoid entirely. A Las Vegas police officer observed his white Ford pickup truck moving erratically near Main Street and Charleston Boulevard, initiated a traffic stop, detected alcohol, and administered a field sobriety test that Corey failed. Blood test results later confirmed the officer's assessment, and Corey was charged with driving under the influence of alcohol. His public response came out swinging. He maintained he had consumed a single drink on his flight to Las Vegas approximately 7 hours before the stop, consumed nothing further after landing, and attributed his poor performance on the sobriety test to an infected shin that compromised his balance and the uneven ground on which the test was conducted. He noted his truck had a mechanical tendency to drift right, and stated that police officers had been called away to an emergency during the test itself, making balancing on one leg particularly difficult. His license was not suspended as a result of the charge. Less than 5 months after that, in January 2024, his brother Adam Harrison was found unresponsive in a Las Vegas motel room after staff grew concerned when they hadn't seen him since January 17th. The landlord entered with a spare key and immediately called for help. Adam Harrison was 39 years old. The Clark County Medical Examiner confirmed the cause of death as an accidental fentanyl and methamphetamine overdose, a result that placed his death directly within the national fentanyl crisis that had been devastating families across the United States. Adam had not appeared on Pawn Stars, and Corey had previously said his brother simply had no interest in being on television, though Adam had worked at the gold and silver pawn shop before building a career as a plumber. Corey posted a childhood photograph of them together on Instagram and wrote that he would always love him. Rick Harrison spoke publicly about the fentanyl epidemic gripping America, channeling grief into a call for attention on the crisis. A family spokesperson asked for space to grieve, and even former President Donald Trump Jr. reached out publicly to offer his condolences to the Harrison family. Rumors about a serious health scare involving Corey circulated in the period following his brother's death, with some claiming it was a stroke and others describing it as a different serious medical event entirely. But neither Corey nor any member of the Harrison family confirmed or addressed those claims, and without confirmation they remain exactly what they are: speculation attached to a name that has already accumulated more than its share of genuine headlines. What has been confirmed, across the full arc of everything documented here, is something more meaningful than any rumor. Corey Harrison continues to appear alongside Rick and Chumlee, with Pawn Stars Do America Season 2 having aired and new seasons reportedly in development. He is still standing inside the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, still negotiating, still building toward the role his grandfather and his father held before him. Whether that transition of authority happens on a formal timeline or continues its slow, complicated progression, he has already demonstrated something no title can grant or take away. He has been tested in circumstances that would have broken many people, and he has come through them still working, still present, and still showing up for the business that 3 generations of the Harrison family built, from a 300-square-foot coin store into one of the most recognized pawn shops in the world. For the man known to millions as Big Hoss, that record of endurance may turn out to be the most defining achievement of his entire life.